Good morning, everyone. In case you didn't know, I'm Roy Masters, and we have this Sunday morning conversation, not a lecture. Well, I hope it's not going to be a lecture. And what we do is, what I do to begin with, is give a little talk about something germane to everybody on earth. For example, my subject today is controlling your thoughts. Now, when I was doing the radio program on Friday, Paul Owen, my producer and technician, sent me a mail, and put it on my, actually it wasn't an email, he just has access to my screen, and puts up the various things that people say. The latest with connection with respect to what I'm speaking about. And everything he put on that screen, looking up, going back centuries, everybody of any renown, poets, writers, kings, potentates, all said, we cannot control our emotions. No, we cannot control our thoughts. They don't talk about the emotions. They talk about nobody. It's impossible to control their thoughts. They do the best they can. They ride over it. But they're tormented by their thoughts. So my wife had a dream last night, and those thoughts come. And she spoke to me this morning. My granddaughter, called me up. She's 18, and she always calls to Grandpa, and I am able to reassure her. And what I told her is, look, thoughts are just thoughts. They have no power, only the power you give them by fighting them. And how you get those thoughts is being obtuse, if that's the correct word, to what's right in your heart. Is that the correct word, obtuse? Yes, I think so. With respect to thoughts, my thoughts are absolutely controlled because I know that the dark side, whatever's left in me, if it's there at all, speaks. And the thoughts you have are the dark side of your being. And you've inherited the dark side, every human being, through one man, sin, and death through sin spreads through the human race like a virus. Evil is a virus. It multiplies itself into each baby that's born. It's called being born into sin, not in sin. Bad translation. Lead us not into temptation, not good translation. God doesn't lead you into temptation, he leads you away from it. Bad translation. But everybody mechanically, not having intuition, could see it. So they all mutter it, as if that would save them. It doesn't. Just muttering something to yourself does not save it. Muttering something to yourself or being upset with yourself because you can't control your thoughts is what the devil, that which passes from generation to generation, from the day you're born, wants. And so therefore, who has told you, who in the history of the human race, who has told you what I'm going to tell you now? That thoughts are nothing. They're just thoughts that have no power. And the only power, the reason why they have power is because you resent them and you struggle with them and you make them real. You're giving up on yourself. You are trying to play God to yourself. The thoughts arrive because you haven't got God. Now, having said that, we have a question. I need to clarify, because you haven't got God. You do have him, but not completely, not perfectly.
Yeah, I was going to agree with what you say, because I can see how I'm so hypered up into a certain thought, maybe in the evening, and you go to sleep and you wake up and you go, well, that was really stupid. It's the emotion you put into the thought, not the thought itself.
Anger towards it, the struggle. Mm-hmm. You have to summon, since you're born into sin. Let's explain it, because translations or transliterations, if that's the correct term, are different. So you have 27 different versions of the Bible, each says it a little different. See? But there's common sense. It says you're born into sin, not in sin. That's not clear. It's into the culture. Every culture, not just, there's no exception. Every culture is born into culture. And therefore, culture invades you. In other words, even in America, we used to have, when I was here, came to America, I don't know what it was, maybe, let me see, 1960, I started on radio. That's 55 years ago. And so I forget how old I was, but I came from Houston, Texas, having spent 7 years in the Institute of Hypnosis, which I began, because I learned all my understanding in the Army by playing with their heads, all the officers and the soldiers themselves. I could manipulate every bloody one of them, excuse the expression. They couldn't help themselves. For example, I'm sitting in a pub in the realm where we're all getting training. There's a little place where you go. And a young soldier sitting there drinking beer, and I don't drink. I drink soda pop, whatever it was. So he says, how do you do this? How do you put people's thoughts in people's mind and make them do anything? I said, because they're already hypnotized. All I have to do is go in and put my thoughts in the place of their thoughts. Because he says, but I don't understand that. I said, well, let me show you. You're already hypnotized. He said, I'm not hypnotized. I said, well, you see that glass of beer you have there? You've been drinking it? It's nice and light, isn't it? I said, no. It suddenly became heavy, so you can't pick it up. He said, I can pick it up. I says, no. You go try if you like. He couldn't pick it up. Now, yes, please.
So, because he got upset that he couldn't.
No, he didn't get upset.
He didn't?
No, he didn't need to get upset. He only needed the strong voice. See, I was no angel in those days. You understand that? I was not a bad guy, but I was not an angel. I am more angelic now, if you pardon the expression. I don't want to sound braggadocious. I'm more towards angelic, meaning my whole life is devoted to helping you, and you, and you, and you. That's what I love. On the other hand, the bad guy does just the opposite. He wants to save you from being saved. And so therefore, he's able, since you're born into culture, you are programmed by culture. If you look at all the cultures, there's loyalty to culture and there's submission, which is not exactly voluntary, but you don't want to be like the wicked ones who conform to the wickedness of culture, the cunning of it, the forces involved in it, even in America. You can see in America, when I came here, people were hanging black people, weren't they? and torturing them down south. The horror of it was there. Now look at it today, it's worse. People are being murdered every day. There's at least 50,000 murders, at least 25 of them, 25,000 husbands killing wives and wives killing husbands. And you have, the school system is broken down, and perversity is on the rise, and morals are disappearing and taking the place of it. 80% divorce rate, no fathers, no grandfathers anymore. Just all it is just gangs and lost kids smoking dope and having sex, with just playing the fool and looking for love in all the wrong places, excuse me, and the country's falling apart. Excuse me. I'm glad to see Donald Trump and the doctor, I forget his name. Ben, yes. These are two beautiful people. One has got energy. If you see the difference between, if I just divert for a minute, between Ben Carson, and they both have a kind of field around them. They're not like any of us. But the any of us recognize it, for the most part. Because even though you have thoughts, they have control of their lives. They have it. There's no question that Donald Trump is a noble person. He's got his riches and he loves his country. If he loves his country, then we can all get rich, because it enables the country that it was, enables us to grow and to be free and to unfold like a flower. But there are other forces that encourage you, and the forces are, with respect to which I'm speaking, I'm not sure if that was a good sentence, but it comes with you when you're born. It comes with you when you're born. And so therefore, what does that say? I want to emphasize this. What does it say? It means that you have never, ever, ever, ever sinned in your life. It's the sin that's made a home in you. As Paul said, he was the only one that really said it. He says, the bad things I did not want to do, I did. The good things I wanted to do, I could not. Therefore, after his, collapse on the ground and losing his memory and waking up, he says, therefore, it wasn't me that did those things. It was sin that made a home in me. It's right there in the Bible. But Jesus didn't say it. He said it. He found the words. But Jesus never had the problem we had, because he was born perfect and kept his perfection. And what did he do? What did he prove? If you ask any preacher, he says, well, they'll tell you, I saw on Fox, they interviewed a minister, and they all said the same thing. Well, we're all not perfect. Even though we've accepted Jesus Christ, we're not perfect. Yes, you are. If you're not perfect immediately, you're done. You can't go through life saying, I'm not perfect, it's okay. We just believe in Jesus Christ. Screw them. They're all liars, but they don't know they're liars. Just like you don't know about your own thoughts, about your own life. They actually become authorities. And as they become authorities, the lie in them lies to the people about scriptures. I am a Jewish man that understands Jesus, and I didn't have to change my religion because he's still Jewish. And don't you forget it. He comes to fulfill Judaism. And any one of you Christians are just grafted back in. Now, I was born in sin, also an imperfect mother, but a good mother, decent. She dropped dead when she was 55 because she worried a lot, because my father died at 42. I don't understand why. He might have caught a disease when he was in Egypt and as a kid and learning 11 languages and running around, who knows? It was thrombosis. And he said, I'd rather die than sit in a wheelchair. So he just kept on working. The thing is, though, the atmosphere was clean. There was no friction. My white mother was decent, but she was codependent on my dad, so therefore she pined and pined and pined and got headaches and got resentful. And I tried to, only 15, trying to get her to see it. And I grew up and went away, and she came across in the Queen Mary backwards and forwards, looking for her the love of her sons, and then being dissatisfied because she left her friends behind. When she left her friends behind, she went back to her friends. When she went back to her friends, she got bored with them and wanted a children, and went backwards and forwards, and she dropped dead. She didn't know where she was going. She was looking for love in all the wrong places. And the wrong places was me. Even my wife looks to me the same way. She became codependent, and she developed problems. And it's simple. It's simple to be married to a man like myself who is not involved with those who are involved with me. See that? So you can put me on a pedestal, but if you put me on a pedestal, you can't find God. I've had people call me on the air. I've been listening for 30 years. I didn't realize I was putting you on a pedestal. The whole idea is putting me on a pedestal makes me God. And therefore, I can't help you. I'm a man. I'm only a man. I'm not different from you. The only difference is I don't want you to put me on a pedestal like the preachers do. They take the role, see, of enabling their sense of power. Because when you put somebody on a pedestal, your preacher, your rabbi, then you're subject to his love. And that's a lie. You're subject to his Judaism and Christianity, and that's a lie. The Christianity is not a lie. Judaism not a lie. It's they who are liars. What you're getting from me is the truth. You want to be saved? You've got to become perfect. Now, if you pick your nose, that doesn't make you imperfect. That's not a sin. If you pass gas, that's not a sin. I'm sorry. You're human. You retain human peculiarities, if you like, which you can laugh at if you want to. But you are within yourself transforming. You are gradually transforming in your perfection. You transform your perfection at every day of your life. You are perfect for that moment. And you're perfect to the next moment. And the next moment. Because you meet it like you should. I pause for a minute to gather my thoughts. But you don't become perfect right away. The Bible says it correctly. It's a verb. I don't know what becoming is because it doesn't tell you what becoming. It's to me, it's an adverb, a verb. If I'm not correct in my grammar, I never was good at grammar. But I can, if somebody wants to correct me on it, I'll be very happy. Thank you so much. Nobody has so far. But I'm making a point. Becoming is a doing thing. And it is never going to be perfect. It's never going to be complete. That's a better word. You've got to be very careful with language. It is something that you do perfectly every day. And you perfectly look at your thoughts as they rise. Because if you love what's right, if you find the path to make connection, to go into God and God comes into you, Because Jesus put it that way. I am in my disciples, and they are in me, and I am in God, and God is in me. And he goes on a couple of times around that. He's going into God, and God comes into you. And you go into and the light of God goes from Jesus into disciples, and the disciples into the people, and so on and so forth. The word of God is spread by behavior. Not so much by words, but who you are. And you can see Ben Carson. You can see who he is. And it is a joy to watch him. It's a joy to see that he's coming from a good place. He's coming from poverty and misery and suffering. And look at him. And look at the others. He had a good mother. And it's very rare for a mother to be able to bring up a son. There's something special about that mother. See, something very special. And therefore the son becomes special. It's rare for a woman to bring up children. I've had callers just last Friday. A lady calls, and she is kind of feeble, I can see it, people pleaser. She drove her husband away. She's got a son, 11 years old. I hope I'm not diversing from what I'm saying, but I'm making the point about little things as we go along and coming back to my subject. I said, I'll tell you what you need to do, what my mother did to me. When I was 12, my father died. Immediately, she turned to her oldest son. My brother is 9 years old. And she looked to me as if I was a husband, which was correct. She looked to me to correct her. Not that she could be corrected, but she looked to me as taking the husband role. I told the lady, you have no business in your weak state to bring up an 11-year-old boy. He's got more common sense in his little finger than you have in your whole brain. And she laughed a little bit. It's because women don't normally have the power to bring up a boy. It's the father that has to bring up the boy and the girl, because the mother needs help herself because she's born in sin and she's Eve. She's the extension of Eve. Every woman is the extension of Eve, every single one. So when you get married, you better be careful, because you're getting married into the woman. And she inherits the virus. And men inherit the proclivity of rebelling against God and look for the support of the woman. And if you look all the way back, it's Eve, passing from the mother into the boys and the children by default of the men. And default of the men by nature, which means you will tend to be pulled towards the woman for reassurance that you're a man, and you're not. You're a pig. Excuse me putting it that way. You're a pig for love, pig for pleasure. If it doesn't, and if you don't get enough pig pleasure in sex, you get pig pleasure with other women with sex and drugs and alcohol to save you from seeing what a scumbag you become. And then we elect a president, having lost all understanding of what it means to be perfect by virtue of the scumbag preachers and rabbis, because they're all scumbags. They're very nice people. Don't get me wrong. But did you know that prostitutes, the number of prostitutes compared with the natural being a prostitute, there's no natural prostitute. It's a woman that hates fathers, hates men. And the only pleasure they have is screwing them and getting power and getting even, because they can see the man becoming dependent and becoming needful and giving her money. But she's looking down their nose at these scum and taking pleasure as she degrades them. That's the thought process. So men encourage the bitch in women because they have no love for them at all. It's all about them. It's all about them feeling good about their rotten selves. But you see, the preacher, it says, you can be a Christian, but you don't have to be perfect. You can't be perfect in this life. It's not true. Now let's get back to thoughts.
I just wanted to, you were talking about becoming.
Yes.
And, whether it's a verb or an adverb. And I believe that it goes together only with the action verbs. I am becoming, you are becoming.
Thank
so
you.
together,
So what is it then?
they mean it's an action.
It is an action.
Yes.
Isn't it? So
And
it's
it's
a
an
kind of
action
verb,
of
isn't it?
going towards, I believe.
But you haven't clarified it. You're saying the same thing as me.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it is, but it is an action word, right?
Yes,
It
it
means
is.
you are becoming.
Yes.
So you haven't become.
Right.
And it's not
It's
necessary.
in the process of.
But the point is, so when you have negative thoughts, all have negative thoughts, you can't possibly prevent the thoughts.
Okay, you fall into these thoughts. They
No,
take
you give
over.
them power. The thoughts are phantoms. They're imaginations. They're really nothing. And the only way they get power is you accepting them as who you are and not wanting to be. And then trying to fix it, either by being angry with yourself or projecting, looking for approval to hide, to accept you as you are. Because if you can put on a persona, a personality, it's a poisonality, and so therefore expose yourself as something you're not. The good that you want people to see, it's an act. And so therefore, the personality, which is loved by other people, nurtures what you are trying to overcome. It loves what you haven't dealt with. That's what it does. That's where it goes. It goes, yes, it feels good for a minute, but it feels good, but the feeling of good is not good. It's an energy that empowers the thought.
The classic example is Robin Williams.
The example is Robin Williams.
Yeah, he's the
If
classic.
you examine his life, the more he tried to love people, it didn't matter how much money he made. That was the reward for pleasing people and everybody loving him, but loving what's wrong with him, and as if to right it.
And
And it only made it worse.
He was not comfortable with that.
No, he wasn't. He was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
He married 3 times. He had suicidal, and it was only because all of that was in everything he did was emboldened the worst in him.
If he had taken early
The evil
retirement.
became real.
Yeah.
The evil took over him. And the agony is so great. And its agony is why people commit suicide by the droves. And if you look around in America today, you'll see millions and millions and millions of people. God, no, that's 100 million, 150 million people taking drugs and looking to the doctor, looking for dope pushers, and raising the words slip me, a president that loves us the way we are.
But it's abnormally.
That's a drug.
It's
And
abnormal.
he's a spoiled brat. He's a spoiled brat. He's not any different from anybody else. He's just a spoiled brat. And he'll ignore all that's good in his family, in a sense. Not that he can escape all that, because he's got to pretend now he's got enough money. He's not the ordinary, fake liar I can't find the words, I'm sorry, but it's do as you want. You've got to get lots of friends. Just never mind what happens to your family.
Sociopath.
Yeah?
Probably sociopath.
A sociopath.
Yeah.
Yeah, a spoiled brat.
Yeah.
But the beauty of the thing is, the real reality of Ben Carson, the reality of Donald Trump, it shines like a light. He stops them in their track. They don't know what's happening to them. And that is exactly that's what becoming perfect is. Every moment. He deals with it beautifully, with strength. And Ben Carson has a different quality. We're not all the same. We're not all Donald Trumps. And we're not all Jesus Christ exactly. We're all variations of that. We need to be variations of it. We need variations of skills. And each one comes, but you can see both have that which makes them different but same. See? Not everybody can be a carpenter. See, you don't want to have everybody a bricklayer, otherwise you eat bricks for lunch. Right? So you can have different peculiarities, not peculiarities, but different. A different way of looking at bricks and trying to make bricks better. See that? And loving people as being a bricklayer. And bringing your understanding of how you made bricks and how you built the house with bricks. It's different, but it's the same. You don't want everybody to be the same. The variations of us. We always have to have love in our family, not reacting, not getting upset. See, because our being upset opens the door. Being upset is egotistical. It's also egotistical. Because, I'm sorry to put it that way, but because emotion awakens, anger and emotions awaken the animal in the man. And he's dying. And as a man dies, he wants to reproduce more. Excuse me saying, but a herring produces 250,000 eggs. So it's lunch to a lot of fish, right? But enough get through to lay another 125,000 eggs. See? There's enough. So as you deteriorate, the hunger to reproduce is because you're dying. Less sex is better sex until there isn't any. Grandma and grandma, I can't see them shuffling in their bed every day. I'm sorry, it doesn't work. And you put them in the same grave, I can't see it happening there either. Sorry, I'm not your usual preacher. What I'm trying to say to you is to look at your phantom thoughts and don't look at them with disdain and fear. Turn fear into courage. Don't look back on misery and mope over it. Look at your future. But you can't look at your future so long as you fail dealing with the present in the past. So therefore, every new moment is an opportunity to turn your fear into courage. And put aside your fear and say, no, I will not do what you say. But not outwardly necessarily. Somebody pressures you to do something. If you yield to pressure, whatever it is left or right of what is right are both wrong. Whatever's behind that pressure, if you yield to it, you're dead. You have given in to the dark side of the force of another person who lives off your dying to them. I had a lady call me last Friday, I think it was, and she listened to me for 14 years, and her cancer has metastasized, I think that's the correct word, into the bone. I said, did you hear that program? So if you don't listen to my program, curse on you. You got to listen.
It's metastasized.
You metastasize, yes, thank you. So, because you see, the beauty of the radio program is to bring people to it, so that I get the opportunity of looking into everything. I says, how long you been listening to my program? 14 years. How comes you still have a problem? Well, to be honest with you, I heard you talking about putting people on a pedestal. And I see that I said, I'm just a man. I am the agent of what I am saying. These words are not my words. This is not me talking. This is something talking through me. And you have something talking to you that's juxtaposed what's talking through me. And therefore, as long as you have me on a pedestal in the hope of me helping you, since you've made me God, which I'm not, you will set me up to fail. A lot of people put me on a pedestal, send me a lot of money, and things get worse and worse, and then they hate me for it. And they die.
Roy, talking about putting people on the pedestal. I was reading part of the Bible where the people of Israel wanted a king.
Yes, of course.
They didn't understand.
Yes.
They were saying they gave up. They didn't realize the downside of it, like taxes and I don't know what else it was. But
yeah, and having
you
as
give
many girlfriends as they want, and saying whatever they want, they can have. Like Solomon with 999,999 wives, and the last one almost did him in.
Well, and also that when Saul was made king, it made him nutty. I mean, he really went. He went cuckoo. You know,
and he lost the battle.
yeah.
I remember him losing a battle, and he only had 300 soldiers left because he lost his mind.
Yeah.
And so he didn't know what he was doing. He didn't understand. He only had 300 men left, but he repented. So he remembered. I won't give you the whole story. Immediately, intuition comes into him, and something says to him, polish your shields. Remember? Polish your shields. Because between the enemy and them, there's a big ravine. A big, deep ravine. But the enemy couldn't see it. And the enemy had thousands and thousands and only had 300 men. And he says, polish the shields. And they were in the proper position when the sun rose behind them. And so when they attacked, they put the shields up. It was in front of them, and reflected the light into the eyes of the oncoming horses, and they all fell into every one of them fell into the ravine. The whole army. But that could not come to a person in that state of mind. And so you will see in Ben Carson, you'll see in Donald Trump, strength, each in his own way. Each in his own way. Each have talents. You can't say no to Donald Trump. You just can't. You can't badmouth him. You can't confuse him. You can't confound him. Everybody will confound themselves that he has his way. That's why he's rich. But the rich did not spoil him. He's taken that riches, and he still will be rich because he wants to be rich in a rich country and make you rich also. So he's putting his money where his mouth is. That's a good thing. And if people can't see that, they're mentally ill. And there's lots of mentally ill that hate good. And in any other part of the world, mostly, if a person has that quality that Ben Carson has, he finds himself he finds himself as all alone and attacked by the people around him who have become degenerate.
The people like both those candidates because they're not politicians and they're both leading in the polls beyond the others. But because they're so individual, Americans are sick of politicians.
They are sick of him, and you have pollsters calling me up to give money to the Republicans.
Yeah.
I said, go screw yourself. Screw me. I'm not going to give you a penny. You're not any different from them. You're just on the same side that you look different.
Yeah.
And so all the others, except one, all the others are just mouthpieces saying that all rehearsed and saying the same thing over again. There's nothing new.
No.
See,
It'd be
when you
business
listen
as
to,
usual.
when you see to me, it's new. And even if I say it again, it's new. Until you see it and it's yours. And then you also, but then it's still not new, it's still not old since you got it, because now you see new. See? So I want to share. So once you start to see, like I can see, the next moment was different. So a bad thought comes to you, and you realize, because the light shines on it, and the light shines on me to talk to you, so that it's a bear witness to what I'm saying, and it's the bearing witness and not anything clever on my part. So I'm bearing witness to what you had when you were born, and telling you, you're not guilty, it's guilty. It is come through you as a virus. And so it lives with you and thinks through you as if it was your own thoughts. And you must not think of them as your own thoughts. You're not able to have your own thoughts. And even when you're saved, you don't have your own thoughts. You only have a choice to have God's thoughts or the other guy's. And so the thought becomes real when you live it. Do you see that? The thought becomes real. The thought takes substance. And it takes substance as a beautiful interior self that when you die, lives on. Now, I want to say something about that. Why did Jesus say to everybody before he went through his travail? He said, I shall rebuild this temple. Yes. Don't you realize that you're the living temple of God, and Spirit dwells within? Didn't he say that? So he didn't talk about the temple, the synagogue. He was talking about himself. Now look at the beauty of this. So they kill him, they torture him, they tear him apart, and they put him into that coffin, that big, with the stone in front of it, so he couldn't get out. The stone rolls back, metaphysical. There's forces. God is a magician. Don't you understand everything in this room, although it's made by men, the intuition is given to them because we have an intuition, not outtuition. You've got to be very careful of outtuition, which means you think of its intuition as your own thoughts. I know my intuition is not my own thoughts. See, because I can see that you think it's your thoughts, but if you ask me, do I have a will? I say, yes, I have a will. But the will has me. I ask you, when you're broken, when you're on the other side, do you have a will? They always say, yes, I have a will. And that's the will you use to try to make things better. But the will is from the other side of the force. And you die. Because you give it substance. You give it substance, and it's a dark substance. It's a disease substance. It is a misery to say. It's a hell realm. And it doesn't matter how many doctors you have, you just live longer in your hell. You wish you were dead. See that? Yes, you want to say something?
What you had told me one time was that when the thoughts come, don't try to figure out which one's a good thought and which one's a bad
That's
thought.
correct.
Because you're not supposed to make a decision on the thoughts.
Exactly.
You just
He
wait
gets
until.
He gets it.
Right, because you don't always mention that when you talk about the bad thoughts, and then people. Well, most of the thoughts that we have
Don't make a
seem like they're
decision,
bad
go,
thoughts.
just watch it.
What's
Just
that?
watch the
Right.
pressure. Watch what it's saying.
And another
What's-
thing you had said years ago was because I used to have a lot of rushing thoughts, when I first discovered you. And then you said it's like you're sitting on a riverbank, and then all the thoughts are just rushing by, and then
And you're watching it. It's always
Right.
now. It's always now.
so you're not
The
in 'em.
river is time, and all the little creatures in it dying and living and eating each other. So I'm looking at you. I don't have a sense of time. See, I'm timeless in a sense. And so I live outside time, inside. My body is subject to time, so I'm getting old. I'm all right with that. But something is forming in me, just like something is forming in you, but that's not good. It's something dark and fuzzy, whatever it is. I don't know what it is, but it's dark and mucky. See? So coming back to Jesus, so the stone rolls back. He steps out. Yeah, he's got nice clothes on. But that doesn't bother God. See, he made the point of turning wine into water, and all we can do is turn water. I don't know. That's the wrong way. he turns water into wine. We turn wine into water. I'm sorry to put it that way. We have to have a little humor here somewhere. And so what he's done, he's got fully clothed. So does God make clothes? Yes. Does he make a windshield wiper for me that I walk on? Yes. It is uncanny. Do you think he can make the whole universe? Isn't magic? God is magic. How can you explain it? This is the uncaused cause of all causes and effect. You can't have cause and effect going on forever, because you have to have an uncaused cause to have made the cause. It's logic. You can't beat it. There's got to be something that's uncaused, is uncaused cause. That's magical when you see it's a whole universe with all the power and all the suns and moons, boom, exploding, and then flowers flowing, people, animals, creatures on this emerald isle. And it's the only one we don't know is anyone. You can't find it. Even now they're looking at their telescopes. Everywhere's chaos. But so maybe our own Earth is the only one in the whole universe. Well, we could do some exploring, but it'd be a lot of fun. But the point is, what is more important is eternal life. A lot of people, atheists, think eternal life is terrible. You might as well just employ. You don't want to live in misery and suffering. So it's good that you have your fun and die. You don't want to live with misery and misery, because that's what happens when you think like that. What you think is wonderful and great, and it turns against you, and it becomes misery. So then they philosophize that it's good to die, enjoy your pleasure. It's good to die. Who wants to live forever? I get that. That's Bas Exwood. That's what Bas Exwood is. See, what he did is demonstrate resurrection, and talk to people in his new clothes. And saying, see, here I am. You couldn't kill me. So I just want to show you what could happen to you. This is not your job. I had to do this. I had to be tortured. I had to not hate the hurter. And create, look what he did. He created the most important religion, but it got lost. And it takes a Jew to find it. Did you know that he says, and it's always been said that the world will be saved by the Jewish people. Salvation is from the Jews, correct? Mm-hmm. And you can see that it is. That's why all the bad people in the world hate Jews. Mm-hmm. Yes, you have genocides. That is hating what is better than you are. If you ever become better within a world that is beyond us, but still possible that if you become a better person, your own family will hate you because you awaken them to their conscience, and they feel uncomfortable and hateful because they feel that your light is a pain that isn't compatible with who they are. See that? And who they are and who they've given themselves to. It's a war of worlds. So when you become better, don't expect people to like you. But don't go around trying to make people like you. And you don't have to proselytize. You don't have to try to tell everybody and teach everybody. It's who you are. That's all there is to it. And the few words, the occasional few words that are necessary is acceptable and valuable. But it's who you are. Just like Ben Carson and Donald Trump, you can see that they're spiritual and they love what's right, and you cannot break them. And American people have inheritance of former freedom, and they've fallen, and they're beginning to see the misery and suffering what the scumbag up there has done. But he's not a scumbag, he's just a spoiled brat. He's not any different, he's just a spoiled brat that he looks like a lover. He looks like your friend. He copies what right is with speech and mannerisms, and so therefore he seems to be affectionate. He seems to be your friend, and he puts on a show. But this goes on, and you listen. You look for love, but you find that love comes from the wrong places. Is that correct? If you're looking for love, other than looking for within, as I've been saying, you tend to bring up the worst in people. And so you empower them by indulging them and putting them on pedestals. We made the mistake. Several generations we lost our virtues. We lost our inheritance that our soldiers fought for. We developed an idea that what freedom is, freedom from right to be wrong, is also a freedom, isn't it? But it's really a slavery. I'm free, but those other people are not. They're free from right, and that's what they look for. But right catches up with them. It doesn't. It does catch up with them unless the whole of America will begin to not see what he is, and hate what Obama is, and then become sicker and more anxiety, and therefore use drugs and alcohol to embolden them and make them feel better, but worse.
Back in the 1970s.
And that's why you can tolerate that man, because he seems to be happy and go lucky and nothing. He doesn't do anything for you. All he does is ignore the things he should do that makes you hate him, or loves you the way he shouldn't.
And when we, as a country, legalized abortion,
It changes into Nazi Germany.
I think God maybe started to take his blessing off the country at that point.
Absolutely.
And the things that have happened since then, and how do we rectify that situation?
Oh, we voted for it.
Yeah.
We voted for it.
As long as we are able legally to freely commit murder, I don't see how there's any help for the country.
It's worse than that. It's worse than that. It is the man-woman relationship got to bring back to that. It grows out of the wrong. If you put a man on a woman on the desert island to reproduce, you'd have misery and suffering on that island, I guarantee you. The man thinks he's falling in love when he's really falling from what love is all about. It's not a man. A man does not love his wife. A real man does not look for the reassurance of his wife. The wife should look for the reassurance of her husband, meaning that not tonight, Josephine. You can't buy that fur coat with my money. See, you're not special. You're a human being, and my job is, as a man, is to find what right and wrong is, and marry you, and make sure that Eve in you doesn't get me, but God in me has you.
But that never happens.
It never happens. It hasn't happened in my own house yet.
Can it happen? Is it possible?
It's not my choice. See, I can only help you if you want it. But if you're married to me, then you think you're okay. I'm Roy Master's wife. I'm all right. See, it's dangerous. So it's a dangerous position for my wife to be married to me. It's also dangerous to me, but I can see my future. I can see why I'm not the man that needs to be married. Not really. But my wife comes along. She's a sweet, she has a broken home, a terrible life. And she's a good person. And therefore, but the relationship with me goes on 63 years. I can't make her come to be good. Never mind what I'd say, if she is codependent and looking at me as putting me on a pedestal, which naturally she does. See, because she's one flesh, and supposed to be. But I'm not one flesh in that sense. I needed that. I needed that relationship for me to find out everything I need to know about women.
Love God more than you love your wife.
Unlike other men. You know, I still love her, even no matter what fault she has. Here I am still. We have lots of good fights. Aren't you glad? Yeah. No, I remember I said, don't make your noise when I'm talking. It doesn't help. It just doesn't show. It shows disrespect. Okay. I'm not glad. Tell you the truth. You should be glad I'm here, and listen, and understand that you're not what you think you are, just because you're married to me. That's all. And I'm waiting for her to see that, and then she'll get better. She suffers from that. And so my way of life is the same for everybody. You love what you see in me and not me. See, I said that? You love what you see in me, but not me. But it's the same thing. It becomes one. If you love me, you're finished. If you love what's in me, it's in you too. See that? So I don't have to. So you don't have to be married. You just have to be around people, and your demeanor does the preaching. It's not your mouth that does it. It's who you are. And who you are behaves itself differently in every moment. So it doesn't behave like the other people. It doesn't cringe. It doesn't fear. It doesn't seek approval. It doesn't bully. You can't touch it. And to some people, it's refreshing. And to see the American people rise, oh, wow, that's it. We haven't seen that for a long time. To hell with the Republican Party. I wouldn't give them a dime. And to hell with the other guys, the Democrats. I sure won't give them a dime. Just wait for the right time to make sure those two guys gets in. And everything's already changing. Just because they exist and they're not even presidents yet. But people don't know what to say. They can't fight him.
No, it's almost like...
They can't fight me either. Don't you see that?
But it's almost like there's hope coming back to the country, like I can remember when Reagan started becoming
but they're
visible.
not president yet. He's not a president yet. He's so powerful.
Yeah, no, but there's hope again that,
Yes.
common sense.
We agree.
Yeah.
But I just want to make you clear that God is a magician. I mean, he brings a universe out of a hat without a hat. Who can understand it? Nobody. You can't possibly. Only acknowledge that it's so. And he's given you eternal life. But instead, if you start struggling with your thoughts or believing them, you get universal strife.
And we pick friends that put thoughts in our head that I can see I have.
I don't have any friends.
I'm seeing the value in that because I see people put thoughts in
You're
my
my
head.
friend in a sense. You love where I'm happy for that. Go enjoy your life. I can't be everybody's friend, but I can be a friend just enough to leave you so that you make the right friends. But not just freely, to give freely to your friends or say no to them. Excuse me, is my eye hurting your elbow? You see? Something like that. Don't be afraid to turn fear into courage. Watch your fear. It's a lie. It's a result of trusting those thoughts and struggling with them as if you could overcome them, as if they were your thoughts. They're not your thoughts. Therefore, and your behaviors are not your behaviors. So if you're a drunk, whatever you are, if you're a murderer, you could wake up in prison and say, what did I do? How did I get here? And you might be executed, but we all die somehow. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
And the person who gets executed doesn't seem to mind. See that? It's welcome another world. And there's a thief on the cross. So it could be the very last minute where you find it. That is the graciousness of our Creator. Correct? So do you understand? There's no need for you to be guilty. The guilt is the thing inside. It's guilty. And it wants to make you guilty. See? And it puts its thoughts in your mind to make you think that it's you doing it. And once you start to meditate, which meditation is, all it does is the light comes in and shows you, it is me. That's why the 7-minute meditation works, because there's no advice. The advice starts to come in as an epiphany, with a little help from me, as I'm supposedly doing it here, to get you to see what the minister doesn't get you to see. You can't believe in Jesus and still not become perfect, because perfect is a becoming word. It's something that has a life forward to this moment. And each time you stand your ground, and each time it gets easier to stand your ground to get something bigger. So it's a 50-foot wave. You have fun with it. When you first started, you just couldn't stand on your surfboard. And it won't feel any different when it's a 50-foot wave, except a greater joy of dealing with something huge. But that something huge is something very degenerate, like a Hitler, like a Mussolini. I mean, it's like or represented as of the government, a dirty old man who's only is one of them, is the extension of the beast and rewarded by the beast with salary called government. See that? So I believe that Donald Trump is going to have a rally about Iran, the money going to Iran. And that is magical. That is acting like a president already. And you see Obama going into the shadows, right? You hardly see him at all now. It's always Trump, Trump, triumphant Trump. And is it only what it is? You can't break him. He breaks you when you try to break him. And you know what happens? You try to break me, you get broken. And so my wife doesn't understand that. See, because she's married to me and thinks that it's married. This marriage, it means that it creates a codependence. So one minute she hates me, next minute she loves me. And then she finds she's a slave. When she finds she's a slave, she gets angry. When you get angry, put me on a pedestal. Can't stop.
But that people who are coming against you getting broken is like the way God made the path.
No.
But it's the way God made the path for people to become decent, because as
Yes.
you become decent,
But you got to go deeper.
yeah.
This is the result. Married or not, enemy or not, if you are whole, you cannot be broken. Okay. But if the person insists on trying to break you, see, because they have put you on a pedestal or they judge you, and you didn't flinch, and so there the judgment falls back on them, right? And they try again, and the judgment falls back on them, because you will not be the extension of, will justify, be a worse justification of what's worse in him. So that, but people will hurt you only to make you worse than them, so they can look at themselves in you and not themselves. See that? So when it doesn't happen, bang, they have to, there's a reaction. There's a reaction to your non-reaction. So you don't have to expend any energy to fight. You only have to have the energy of grace that is juxtaposed against the energy of stress. The man that's fallen from grace is an animal subject to the stress of what animals need to function. And his whole life is solving problems like an animal. They have to get angry to function, to beat the other person, and to struggle with the self within the self. And all he does is he feeds the sickness, because he thinks he's like God. He thinks like he's responsible for his own problems, but he is not his own self from the day he's been born. Well, close to the day he has been born, because children do survive, many of them, to a point where they can see the stupidity of their parents. But the parents don't see their own stupidity. The wife or the mother nearly always takes the role that the father is stupid, and he is, because he's looking for the love of his wife. So when looking for the love of his wife, all he does is embolden the hell in her, and give his life force to the female that is coming through all the generations. And the women bring up the children, and women should not bring up the children. They should give birth to the children, at a certain point hand it over to the father, who will give the woman the kind of impression that will overcome any other impression, negative impressions, to look for the quality of their father in a husband. But if the man is not impervious, if he's got to be impervious to the influence of the woman must be subject to the goodness in that man and be grateful that he says no. Put the fruit down, Eve. See, don't play with me, Eve. It may take years or months for that to happen. Only strengthens the man. And if the woman does not, like everybody else, if she does not respect the man, there are very few of them, so we don't. Well, right now, most men are finished. Most families are finished. And women are bringing up the children and infecting them with Eve, with the spirit of Eve. And when the children really want their father to win. See? And they hate their father for not protecting them from their mother. That is it. And when the man is a bully, if a woman has a weak husband, see, she wants a strong man, but in her brokenness, in her anger, she looks for a strong man. But when she finds one, there's a woman in there. She's dealing with the mother that put it in there, because there's wickedness is in the women, and it gets into the men. So they're no longer men anymore, whether they're bullies or lovers of women looking for love in all the wrong places and demanding from her to make him feel like something he shouldn't feel. He wants to feel like he's something, and that feeling is a lie. Feelings are lies. Love is lies. When you have love, you feel nothing. You feel nothing when people pressure you. You feel nothing at all, and nothing is correct. If you do nothing right, you'll never do anything wrong. That's my favorite. If you do nothing right, if you are still, see, and composed, that God is in you, and therefore you cannot be pressured to do the left or the right. And so when you're not upset about pressure, just take something pressure facing you. It's only wanting you to give in. It may not have anything in mind, just want you to give in to them and empower them. And to the degree you give in, you're dead. And so if you don't give in and you hold your ground, and because the pressure, the human pressure is stress, and stress is the animal, is the energy of the animal. But counter stress, what counters the stress, what gives you dignity, what gives you the God's nature, is unexplainable. Whatever it is from within you, and it counters everything on the outside. And therefore, the animal reactions to each other, run and fight, run and fight, run and fight, does not apply.
It's beautiful.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
So everybody else may be running and fighting, but it can't touch you. And it torments. And when it torments them, they die. So when those two people I mentioned, Dr. Ben Carson and Donald Trump, if you put these into power, evil wilts. And all of a sudden people become free. If they love the good in them, and it seems like they do, if there's enough, we will have freedom for a long time. If not, you can say goodbye to America. It's time to leave, because fighting will do no good. The country dies. And things will get worse and worse and worse, because you left the power on the throne to be passed to the next, and each one will finish you off more. There's a threshold where you become a communist country with no hope. The whole world leaving Israel by itself with 300 nuclear bombs, and they can do a lot of damage to that. As I said, salvation comes from the Jews. Little tiny country, 7 million people. And Manhattan is as big as that, right? And they've got 30,000 soldiers. Where'd they get those from? I don't know. But they haven't lost a war yet. See? Something in there. They haven't found Jesus yet. And they're coming to it. If I have something to do with it, and I don't know if I will, it's all needs a finishing touch. They're looking for the Messiah, and he came and went. And he didn't recognize it, that's all. So the way I express my thoughts here should be easy for everybody to understand. Your thoughts are not yours, they're phantoms. They have no power until you give them the power. And you give them the power because you don't have faith in God. Then you give them the power because you have faith in it. You think they're real. They think you're your thoughts and you have to struggle with them. It's not true. Isn't that simple? Any other questions?
The dark side, I think, doesn't want you to even know that all the good you're talking about exists, because as you're speaking, I can feel the world you're talking about shining a light on the darkness in me, and in areas where I get hung up on, and I can see where I get tripped up, and it doesn't want me to know that that there's a world
But you can
beyond.
see it, but why isn't it easy for you to see that those thoughts are just phantoms? It's just phantom. I don't know, is there another word for phantom? Help me with it. Illusion?
Illusions.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's nothing, but you make it something by thinking it's your thought. You don't have your own original thought because that got damaged. Because with the imprint of being born into a crazy home, and a crazy home is I'm looking for words which means without end. Nearly every home in America is insane. Even nice people, even Christians, even Jewish people, all they have is the behavior. So the Christians shouldn't just have the behavior, which is the imitation and acting out on the stage. All the world the stage, and men and women merely actors, right? That's Shakespeare. He's right. So that's all you have. Yes. Can you stand up so we can see you?
Yeah, I'd just like to give an example, I think, of what you're talking about. It might be helpful. This happened many, many years ago. Just one example, like probably when I was about 20 years old, and I'm 66 now. I remember I was living in this apartment, and this thought came to me. My neighbor had left his keys in his door, and the thought came to me, well, take his keys. And I took his keys, and I went downstairs, and I got in his car, and I went out and drove it around, and I went for a joyride in his car, came back, and and then the next day he came over and knocked on. You seen my keys? And of course I lied. I said, no, I haven't seen your keys. But the point is that when the thoughts came to me to do,
it became action.
It became action. But I had no objectivity to my thoughts. The thought came to me. The evil thought came to me to do it, and I didn't. But I didn't realize it was not my thoughts, that it was something. And now the difference now is, and I talked to you last week about it a little bit. I still get thoughts, but I see
Of course.
I'm objective, and I have distance, and there's no power. Like illusion. It's like a movie. It's there watching a movie screen, and it has no power.
Yeah.
I just thought that might be.
That's good. You know what? I can watch a movie. You do see a lot over the years. Yeah, I'm in my 88th year, so I've seen. But if you show me a movie from 1939, I won't remember it. I won't remember. But the minute the pictures appear, I've seen that. But the point is, it didn't stay. It has a certain place of its own, where it's there. I never can explain it, but it isn't part of my life. But whenever there's a movie that has something like a moral purpose in the movie, and that's why I mentioned last night I saw a movie, is all Japanese, but brilliantly done. I just forget the name of it. But it was a powerful story of faith. And what caused me to discuss the subject matter is the beauty, it was all in Japanese, you had to read, but it was worth watching. The magic of one general to be able to think for himself, and nobody else sees it, but they loved him. And they loved him, even though it only had 12 ships and the other had 300 ships. And how he won the battle with intuition, which he couldn't explain to people, but they loved him enough to, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. They loved him enough. And even though the king tried to kill him, he still wanted to be loyal to the king. See that? In those days, it's an old 1500 thing. And so the whole moral of it was the fear is growing amongst our people because the enemy has 300 ships and we only have 12. What we're going to do? See? And he says, you have to turn your fear into courage and to induce fear into your enemy. And you can play on the fear of the enemy because you have no fear yourself. And it took a little while for that to happen, but that was the message of it. And so when there's nothing more to look forward to, don't look at the past, look and put all your strength into the future. See, that's it. No point in reminiscing, but the movie said it better than I could say it. There are some movies that have that, see. And it reinforces the concept of a 1500 year, a movie about a 300, 1500, in 1500 of a Korean general. Korea was different in those days than it was right now. And so it was really makes a good discussion on the subject of what I was speaking about today. I don't know how long I've been speaking. How long have I been speaking? It's 10:30. 10:30. So an hour and a half. Is there any other questions that you would like to throw at me on the subject of thought? Do you think you'll be able to, when the next moment comes and you feel fear, it's only the fear that comes through not speaking up, not standing up when you should. It means you've given in to the force. And so when it comes to doing the right thing, all it gives you is fear. And the fear gives you faith in what gives you the fear. All you have to look at the fear is not the fear, it's not your fear. It's not your anxiety. Listen carefully. It's not your fear. It's not your anxiety. It's the thing that has grown inside you to be you that you think of as you and is not. So the minute you start to wake up and the minute you are required to do the right thing, it fears the right thing. It fears that you're going to, see that? That is the fear, but it's not your fear. And once you see it's not your fear, it's all over.
There's a quote I read recently, and I'm not going to be able to paraphrase it very well, but it said, doubt is like joining the enemy's army and fighting against yourself.
Of course.
And that's...
But you can say all these things.
Yeah.
And as I started in the opening discussion in this program today, is that nearly all of the writings concerning thoughts with famous authors and writers, they all say you cannot control your thoughts. And they suffer from it, but they still can do the right thing on the surface.
Yeah.
But they die anyway. But it's better to have the right thing on the surface than it's better than nothing. But it's not the answer.
No.
See that?
I was going to say, you get to the other side of fear, and fear goes away when you have enough faith that you know, regardless of what happens, God's going to take care of you in some manner, even if it
actually,
means...
can I speak for my own self? Because my whole life is fearless. I only had a fear one time. That was standing in front of a judge in this county, because the whole county was turned against me. Right? You remember that? So it's something I didn't do, really. So it doesn't matter. The judge has the power to mess your whole life up. But then I noticed it and it went away. That's it. That was the only time I ever felt it. And of lots of intimidation, especially in the home. Intimidation. It's always there. And since my wife brings up the kids when I'm not home, she imprints it into the kids. But the kids eventually because I'm still alive and it's grown up in there. I have to have little altercations with them sometimes. See that? See? But that's I'm still their dad. So my oldest son is 62. I'm not sure I would be able to help him a whole lot sometimes. But there's always a hope. See? Each one has their own peculiarity. Each one has a little piece of her, not me. But then it's becoming me. Because there's good in them. There's good in the kids. So I'm no different as a father as you are. But I deal with it differently. Right to the very end. No matter how wrong they are, how stupid they are, I still wait for them. Just like God waits for me. See that? I pass no judgment. I see it. And they don't see me seeing it. Some of them think I'm so easygoing that they may not think that I see what I see. So there's some they want to protect me. But I still see that is a good thing and I let it happen. That's it. But I always see. And I see when they're trying to make me see their way. I stand my ground too. And here's the thing. I'll give it to you as a bottom line. It doesn't matter if it's your friend or your family. You stand your ground, and the consequence for standing your ground is salvation for you and damnation for them. Or, and when I say or, let me just rephrase it. It's not easy to flow from one idea into the other. So standing your ground is painful to those who try to take you from your ground. And they do it unconsciously or consciously. I don't know if that's a good word because there's no real consciousness in that either, is it? There's no real consciousness in it. So is it ignorance? Because you even when I'm speaking to you today, you as you came in, you have problems with your thoughts, and I hope I've clarified that now. But you might forget it when you go out. It may be just hearing it, and that was a good talk, and then you forget it again. You have to have an inclination in such a way it's permanent. And permanent means you have been, that since it's not you who doth these things, but sin that made a home in you, something that talks to you and gives you all the doubts, and makes you doubt what good is, and makes you trust what bad is, and makes you struggle with it as if you could fix yourself. And so, it's so important is this, that there's an outcome for your adversary, whereby they give you two choices, both bad. When you get upset, you give in or you become them to others. Okay. That is bad. When they come against you, the influence, the imprinting of what I am stabs at them, crunches them, and if there's any good in them, they feel better. Wait, what is about this person? You know, you can see that people are almost laughing and enjoying the game that Trump is playing. See? He knows how to overcome the bad guys. They didn't know, but he's doing it. And that's the reason why he's successful. It's one of the reasons he doesn't know what he's got. And now he's playing it in a good way. He wants to save the country with his money. So he can still have his money. But he also loves the country. So it works both ways. So let me get to the point, because I can't help but keep adding little pieces there. The point is, if the person is your own family and they resent you and have no faith in what's good in you, and they rebel, they will die. You can expect them to go right willy-nilly out. And even though they become successful, they will die in their success. See? And you know what? If it's a member of my family, it wouldn't make any difference. You're dead. because you're not my family. Just because you're born to me does not make me any different. I know you're going to die. I know it's going to screw you up a lot, and you might come to your common sense. I'm waiting for that. Keep trying me. You're going to find the same thing there, and I don't care if you live or die. It works for me either way. Do you understand that? So you don't have to worry about whatever your son or your daughter is. Let them drop dead, and you won't feel anything. Well, I don't feel anything because they're my family. If they're good, why should I feel that I made them good? There's no feeling. They're free to love me. Do you understand that? They're free. They're just like me. So I do good things for them, and they do the good things for me. But we're not expecting anything in return. It's not a game anymore. It's just love. So who cares about the one that is rebellious to the very end? If it's your wife or your husband, it doesn't matter. Let them drop dead. Do you understand that? Because if you don't, you drop dead. That's the choice. You can't not give in. You cannot give in. Because when you give in, you feel guilty because you gave in. And what happens? The chances are, if it's a codependency, you're going to make up for guilt for hating him. For hating him for your own weakness. Right? Mm-hmm. Okay. It's complicated, but it's simple. You're dead if you don't stand your ground. And you can stand your ground with hostility too. That doesn't do any good to you either. They won. And you just haven't seen it yet. Now, how many ways can I say it? See, when you look at things, now that I can speak forever. In other words, what all the outcomes are billions. How you die, when you get run over, or some power starts to pull you and you can't help it. Your hands you're losing control and you're feeling it, and the wheel's turning and it's running off the highway, and you can't stop yourself. All kinds of strange things happen. And no psychiatrist is capable of saying what I just said. He will never say to you, they will call it an identity crisis. Yeah, wow, really deep. It's an identity crisis, sure it is. But it's an entity crisis. That's the identity. Well, I just think that we've done it. Unless you have a question, I'm happy. You want?
I had experience with relatives, two relatives that resent me, and
listen, if you do it right,
yeah,
your type 1 diabetes goes away.
Yeah,
because it starts in childhood.
Yeah, it is.
Your misery starts in childhood.
Yeah, probably. I don't remember a lot of stuff, but I do remember a lot of stuff when I was young too.
Yes.
But I was always, when I was very, very small, I was very, very insecure. My mother told me that. She said, you were very fearful when you were young. And she said, every time I reacted with fear, you would react with fear. And she said, I had a hard time controlling my emotions because I know you would be the one reflecting it. So it was interesting. She had a consciousness, but she would fade in and out, of course.
Yeah, but she has a consciousness, but she couldn't control it.
She didn't believe in herself. What happened was her parents did a real bad number on her, and they took away.
There's a generation.
Yeah, what they did was she gave me little clues when she was growing up. She said stuff like, well, when we were young, I wasn't allowed to speak at the table. And then the other one was that she wanted to become a veterinarian, and her father said, no, you're a woman, I forbid it. And then she wanted to marry a man early on, and he said, no, I forbid it. So she said that when she was growing up, she grew up in a rosy haze, and that she was kept as a little child, in a sense. So I see the number that they pulled on her.
But you see, once it's installed,
yeah,
it's a hypnotic state. Here's some extra stuff now. It's a hypnotic state.
Yeah.
The first imprint is the hypnotic state that you will carry out for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and you can't see it.
Now the kid at the bar, when he couldn't pick up the mug,
Yeah.
all I had to do is go in there.
You replaced that authority that did it
Yes.
originally.
That's right.
Yeah.
But no, I couldn't cure him with hypnosis.
Yeah.
Hypnosis is not a cure. It's the problem. Excuse me. It's the problem.
It's a conditioning of that soul.
I can take it over,
Yeah.
but I can't cure you. I can make you do things.
It has to come from within. Yeah, I have to really see it myself.
I can also promote, I can also have a congregation and make you all behave yourself and make you think you're different from everybody else. And I can keep that alive in a whole congregation, which you see, we don't have a big congregation, but people do listen. I like them to listen. And in the listening, be free from me. But still like to listen. You see, because I do like to talk to my grandchildren, and they talk back. I like to hear what they have to say, and I can add a little bit. We can add a little bit to each other's lives.
Sure.
See that? I can see things. I'm older. I can see things you don't. Let me show you what I see. Oh, thank you, Grandpa. See? Or maybe a couple of times a few times.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to say goodbye. I hope that you've enjoyed this discussion, and you can get a copy of this when it's edited. So in a week, next week, usually these programs are edited, and so what you're hearing as of now will be replayed next Sunday when the editing is done. When I'm coughing and doing things like that, we have a little bit of editing, that's all. And so when you hear this discussion, I recommend you download it or get a copy of it and keep it in your drawer somewhere and play it, because you may not express it the same way as I do. But you will express it if you are that person. If you are uncompromising, you will not compromise anything at any moment, no matter what it is, no matter if they cry or commit suicide. But whatever they say, if someone comes along and says to you, I'm going to commit suicide if you don't do what I want, don't say, go ahead and commit suicide, because you will cause it to happen. You don't say anything. Because in that state, that will make them do it. See that? I'm just saying, finishing off, thank you very much for supporting the radio program and this Sunday morning conversation. Thank you. God bless you.